touch that dial. It's the Dogmen Radio Hour on Houndsman XP. Your host, Ed Barnes and Tanner Hurd. Now a word from our sponsors at your favorite beverage company. Yes, beverages are always refreshing and good for you too. So remember to stop and enjoy an ice cold beverage from your favorite beverage company. And now, let's catch up to the boys and hear of their latest adventure on the dog.
Hey guys, Tanner Hurd here with Dogmen. I got
Ed Barnes,
Cody Jenkins,
Scott Hampton.
We went out this morning with Scott, with his decoy dogs. A lot of learning. So we're just gonna do some talking about that and what went on. So
yeah, it was something. Like, it's been a long time since I hunted something with the dog and got the excitement that we got this morning. The first, we did probably like 4 sets on coyotes, and we just saw one, just drew in one coyote, but the wind was kind of swirling and he caught wind of us and he was gone. But we set up the 5th set and it was something.
I mean, it's hard to work the wind when you got Ed Barnes with you.
Yeah.
That's just part of it. I mean, I kind of told Scott that getting into it is we're kind of handicapped, but we're going to have to do what we can. So.
But, I mean, before we get too deep into it, Scott, why don't you kind of tell I know a lot of people aren't familiar with decoy dogs. I mean, we're hunting coyotes with dogs that not in traditional sense of like running hounds, like running coyotes. It's a totally different deal. So why don't you kind of give everybody kind of a explanation of what we're talking about?
Okay. With the dogs, you still have to call the coyotes in, but the coyotes have their pups, usually around mid-April, and they're real protective. They don't want another canine in the area. And the closer you can get set up to a den, usually the better luck you'll have. But when the coyotes come in, we're usually playing some type of coyote vocal, fight, distress, or something like that. And when they're coming to the call, the dogs will see them and go out to them, and the coyote will usually turn and run. Dogs, I usually let them chase them 50, 60 yards, and I'll tone the dogs back. And you saw how the dogs just kind of arc around and start to come back and look over their shoulder.
Yeah.
And coyotes will, typically follow them in, and they might nip one, and they'll turn around and they'll chase it off again. The coyote might go into some tall grass or a tree line, and there's 2 or 3 more coyotes in there. So one can turn into 2, can turn into 3. But what they're doing is they're protecting their pups in their den. And right now we are, on the cutting line of when they kick the pups out of the den, or it's called dispersal, but they push the pups out of the den and they're not so much in protection mode. And, we got that one today that wanted to work. So very well could have just turned and ran to never be seen again too.
Yeah, the last set that we got some coyotes in, like Scott said, that the coyotes weren't super aggressive. He's been showing us video for a couple weeks. I mean, of coyotes literally like 10 and 12 feet from the people, because when they get to chasing those dogs, they kind of drop their guard a little bit, I guess you would say.
Yeah, when they lock in on the dog, the ones that are going to work, wind is not a factor anymore. You can be seen. It changes. There's like a switch that flips, and they just go like a buck on a doe. They're just a totally different animal when that happens.
Yeah, today, I've call hunted in the past. I mean, I'm not saying I'm a call hunter, but the wind's a big, big factor in it. And obviously you don't want to be seen. The coyote come in on that last set, seemed like pretty good wind. But when he seen the dogs, he come in and was circling. Cody was getting video of him. And, I mean, I seen him look right at us. There's four guys sitting there, all huddled up in one spot, and he still didn't bother him. I mean, he knew he was there is what I'm trying to say. And the dogs had him so focused on them that any other time, that'd have been a no-go. It'd have been over. So.
Yeah, and then the first one that came in, he was close. He had to be close. And he looked, he might have been younger or whatever, and he didn't want any part of it. Mm-hmm. And then the one that worked, he came in once and then left and came back, didn't he?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what was kind of neat about it. Was like I've kind of like Tanner. I've done a little bit of call hunting with one of my uncles, but not very much. And I was a kid when we did it, but this was different because like that second coyote that come in on the last set, we thought we lost him for whatever reason. He took back off, and the dogs kind of chased him. And then Scott called the dogs back. I'm sitting there thinking it's over. Like we missed our shot on that one. But sure enough, the dogs coaxed it back into range.
That today, another thing I've been amazed with is, we're not talking about you're running bear, or you're running a pig, or you're trailing a coon, or whatever. But the focus on them dogs is out of this world, I guess I would say. Is they know what they're doing. They're not driving the track, but at the same time, their wheels are turning, and they're looking for when that call goes off. That's what I was impressed with, Scott. Is they know what you're there for, And tell us a little bit about how you start. Per se, if I was going to do it, how would I go about getting started?
I tell everybody, get you a pup. And if you're lucky, get one that's going to turn 8 or 9 months in April. Because I usually, the action usually gets pretty good early May. Mm-hmm. And I don't like to have a dog younger than that out there because, the way I see it, if I got a 6-month-old pup out there and I get it rolled and it quits me, that's on me. Mm-hmm. If I got a dog that's 8 or 9 months old, if it gets rolled and it quits, that dog might be 15 months old before it gets rolled the first time. It's still going to quit. Mm-hmm. The way from what I've seen. And I don't do anything with those pups but let them be puppies. Play with them, get them out, mess with them. Like I was telling you guys earlier, teaching those dogs to come back to the tone. A couple of hot dog weenies in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. You just beep them and reward them and, do that a couple of days and you pretty much got one tone broke. A lot of guys want to drag a coyote tail around or a hide or whatever. I don't think that hurts anything, but I don't think it helps. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I tell everybody is don't kill a coyote and bring a dead coyote home and start dragging it around or dragging it behind the four-wheeler because that could shake a dog up. They mature differently. Mm-hmm. I've had dogs that were probably ready at 6 months, but I've had some that were not ready till they were 10 months. And I don't want to do anything to shake that dog up. It's just like if you had one of your hog dogs was 3-4 months old and you put it in the pen with the hog and that hog rolled it. That dog might not want to have anything to do with pigs anymore. Or it might light a fire in that dog.
Yeah, exactly. Every dog is different. Just like people, everyone's confidence level is different than others. Yeah. And you don't want to put them in a scenario that's going to rattle their brain right off the bat. I get that 100%. Yeah. Describe your dogs a little bit for us.
The breed
and the size of your dog, is it a big factor?
As far as when it comes to size, I've had, I had the dog Poot that I showed you that you just saw the pictures of. She's 10 pounds. And in June, I've had 2 coyotes come in that look like males, big coyotes coming in, and she take off to them, just her, turn and run, never to be seen again. Now, when you get coyotes working, say they come in and, like with the 2 dogs we had today, one of those dogs weighs about 28 pounds, the other one weighs right at 40. Not a whole lot of size difference, but there is some. But when you got a considerably smaller dog, when they start working, especially when you get 3 or more, they will target the smaller dog. You'll have more aggression towards that smaller dog. Mm-hmm. But as far as the initial, if they're going to work, they're going to work. I just like the 40, 45-pound dogs because they're big enough to handle themselves and they're small enough that If there is an intimidation factor, they're usually, I don't think they'd be too intimidating. But
Yeah.
and I've had blackmouth Catahoula cross dogs. I've had mountain cur, jag cross dogs. The one dog today is half Donovan Pinscher, half Jag Terrier, and the Donovan Pinschers are a protection dog. They've got like 7 or 8 different breeds. This guy took dog 1, bred it to dog 8, got pups, dog 2 to dog 7, and narrowed down to what he wanted with his cross. And those dogs, you can't just go find one. You're going to have to find somebody that's in that crowd that knows you're going to take that dog and use it for what it's supposed to be, what it's bred for. So they've stayed pretty pure, and but they've got, with what they've got Bulldog in them, they've got some Malinois in them, they've got some Dutch Shepherd, some Cane Corso, but they seem to have a pretty good prey drive with everything that's mixed in them. And so she's half that and half Jag Terrier. And she's athletic. You can tell by, you saw she's athletic and can do quite a bit. And then I've had some with a little bit of everything. And then, of course, the Patterdales, they're not big enough to do it. But what got that started was when I first started doing this, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Predator Masters Forum. So they've got coyote hunting, they've got lions, bears, and houndsmen section and all that. And that's where all the decoy dog guys, their conversations and all that happened. And they started talking about Patterdale Terriers, talking about how they're crazy, they're nuts, they're insane, you can't control them, there's no way you can make a decoy dog out of them. And when I first started doing this, there were a couple of guys on that forum that were just critical of everything. They claimed their dogs would do this and they would do that. And there was never any video, though. Oh, I'm not taking a camera, I'm too busy and all that. Well, one of the main guys somehow made a DVD on decoy dogs, and it was an absolute joke. And there definitely wasn't any proof of his dogs doing the thing. Now, I will say that guy breeds dogs. He breeds quality dogs. But the claims he was making, no, they weren't happening. But they were critical of me and one of my buddies, so we just started filming. And I mean, we were throwing content after them, content after content, just, to shove it in their face. And
with the Patterdales?
With everything. Yeah. And then I'd had the Patterdale and was doing it with her. And it's like, you talking one of your deals the other day, people were talking about why you do it and all that. And I said, whenever you're doing it to prove something to somebody else, you're not having fun. When you get to the point to where you're hunting, you don't worry about what anybody else thinks about your dogs, where you're satisfied with your dogs and you're having a good time, that's when you win.
Yeah.
But I went for years, and I mean, I felt like I needed to produce 2 or 3 videos a week or I was failing, which wasn't the case at all. But that's what got me started with the Patterdales. It's like, oh, I'll show you can decoy with the Patterdale. And I just got lucky. I got the best dog I've ever had in my life, and she did it, and she loved it, and she was good at it. Now, she got hurt quite a bit because she's 10 pounds. But she loved to do it, so I let her continue to do it. And but now Mila, she's a Patterdale. Her mama was a little bitty dog, and I bought her to use as a, do terrier stuff with her, to go on the ground and stuff. And she turned out to be 3 times bigger than I was hoping she'd be. So she got to do this, and she's pretty good at it, and she enjoys it. And, they know when I throw those collars on them that it's time.
Yeah, they know. They knew as soon as they got out of the truck this morning that, hey, basically, when we pulled in the driveway this morning, they was, you ready to go hunt? And that's what they was telling us. And they, it was just really, really impressive. It's not that, there's not that many people that do it,
Right.
So I've seen videos and, coyotes up in your lap and stuff like that. And I thought, how often does that happen? But today, that coyote wasn't that aggressive. I mean, I'll tell you that. But still, yet them dogs knew how to work it enough. And, of course, you're toning them back. And when you tone them, but they still know the speed. They don't just bull rush them.
Mm-mm.
You know, they know to kind of high trot over there to them and just kind of tease them. You know, that's.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably mention that some people might think that those dogs are going out and, like, fighting coyotes. And we didn't see any of it today. I mean, we saw there was a little bit of nipping.
Yep.
But from what you were telling us, like, I mean, they're not just going out and balling up with these coyotes regularly. It's really like it's a cat and mouse kind of.
Well, one thing I've noticed is, and I learned this when I was in New Mexico a few years ago, because I actually stumbled across a den. Those coyotes, when they come in, when they leave, they are leaving opposite of where that den is. They're not turning and going back in that direction. They're going somewhere else. So they're wanting to take that dog away from that den.
Yeah.
And then when the dog turns and starts coming back to us, when when they're not coming back towards the den, they're going to follow those dogs. And, you saw that dog nipped Mila's butt, and she turned around, and then it was done. The dog took off. Sometimes earlier, like say maybe June or July-ish, when they've got the pups are still younger, those coyotes will be a little more aggressive, and they might hook up for 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's not that dog's job to fight, but they need to be able to.
Yeah, they got to be able to move, and they got to be able to fend for themselves.
Well, I think you were saying that, like, that's the most, like Tanner was asking about getting some dogs and starting this. I think you said that getting a dog that will actually go to the coyote is, you can't train them. They just have to have that naturally, and that was the big part of.
Yeah, if a dog will go to a coyote, you can make a decoy dog out of it. But I think a lot of people wind up their dogs are just companion on stand, because number one, they want to shoot the coyote as soon as they get a chance, and you cannot make a decoy dog with the dog coming in and shooting it. You make a recovery dog.
Yeah.
And secondly, today was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It got warm there at the end, but when you start out and it's 85, 87 degrees by 9 o'clock, and then at 9:30 it's 92, it's miserable.
Yeah.
And there's ticks and there's spider, everything, there's a lot of it that sucks. And guys, they think, well, I'm just going to hunt in the fall and the winter. Well, the coyotes don't work, and it's hard to make a dog. And that's why I think a lot of these guys, when they ask questions, I give them my opinion on stuff, what's worked for me. And it's not the easiest method. So they'll talk to another guy that'll tell them something that's a whole lot easier. And I always ask them, I said, you need to get your advice from a guy who has dogs like you want your dogs to work.
Yeah.
And when they're talking to guys whose dogs don't see 2 coyotes a year, what they tell them to do is easier. Just like the one guy I told you about recently, he had a guy tell him, just tie your dog up beside you if you're going to go out there and he's the dog's too young. That way you don't get the dog hurt. The last thing I want my dog to do is, I don't want to be a safety blanket. I want that dog out in front of me. And you saw how those dogs will go out there and they'll watch and they'll look, and then they'll kind of get bored and they'll trot down and they'll cover some ground. I want a dog moving. I want him out there away from me.
And another thing is, like, we hunted some hay fields and stuff, but part of this was weeds. Some of this was over the dog's head.
Yeah.
And so I think in my opinion, I mean, obviously I'm not an expert at this. This was my first time, but when they're moving like that, they're not beating a track. But they're getting a different angle. They're on different ground. They're on this hill. They're on that hill. Their trees are different. So, I mean, I think that's as good as any. You don't want them to. And they was checking back in, is what I would call it today. They'd come back by us, but when you hissed at them, I mean, they knew, hey, he's telling me there's something close.
They knew there was a coyote there.
Yeah, they knew there was a coyote.
And like you were talking about, we've pretty much had basically 4 dry runs first thing this morning. So if you just want to shoot coyotes, when we set up at the 5th one, you started calling in almost, I mean, within a minute. It
wasn't even a minute.
Probably not a minute, but we had that one coyote pop up. You could have shot him right there.
Oh, yeah. He's sat there for 15, 20 seconds before he moved.
Yeah.
I mean, but every coyote that's come in, he could have shot. It just trying to get the dogs working.
Yeah, we were waiting for the dogs to get into it.
And those three, we was like, shoot it.
Yeah, on the second, I don't know if it was the second or the third one. I don't know if it was 2 or 3, but the one that you ended up shooting, you know, he was working, as you say, a little bit, but it wasn't like some of the videos.
He was coming back.
Yeah,
but he wasn't like super aggressive. But it's enough that we had him irritated enough that he was coming back.
Yeah, but we saw some dog work, and then Scott goes, "You guys want me to shoot him?" And we're like, "Shoot that fucker now!"
The Houndsman XP Podcast Network is powered by Cajun Lights. All of your lighting needs for hunting can be taken care of at Cajun Lights. They have 3 models of cap lights. I'm going to run through them real quick. You've got the Rougarou, which is their high-end light. If you're a competition hunter and you got to find that coon up in a tree and it's all riding on finding that coon, you'll want the Rougarou on your head. Next is the Bayou. That's a pretty standard light, but it's got packed with features. It's got multiple colors. It's got walking lights. It's got the red, the green, the amber. It's all built in right into that light. And then you have one of my personal favorites, the Micro Gator. The Micro Gator is an ultra lightweight cap light. It's got all the features of a white light, red, green, and amber. I've used this light for everything from finding bear tracks early in the morning to coon hunting at night to working on plumbing in the house, changing tires on the side of the road. My truck doesn't leave the driveway without a Cajun light in it, and that light is the Micro Gator. Every Cajun light is durable, made from the highest quality components, and it is backed by Cajun's top-rated customer service. Check out Cajun Lights. You can go to our website at houndsmanxp.com, go to our sponsors page, hit that link, it'll take you right to Cajun Lights. Check them out. They got a lot of stuff to offer over at Cajun Lights.
One of the videos I sent you the other day, I was in Kansas with some guys that I go up there and hunt with a couple times a year. And last year, we got into several stands, good solid stands. And then the other day, that coyote comes in, the one that was just right there, just barking. And Jake shoots him. I'm like, what are you doing? And he no more than shoots him. And you saw the dog standing there, and then that other coyote come in. If he wouldn't have shot that coyote when that other dog came in, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But it was still a good stand, but it wasn't near what it would have been. And he was like, man, I'm sorry. I can't believe I did that.
So we didn't get to see it today, but so like normally we just had single coyotes coming in for the most part.
Yeah.
But the videos you've showed us, sometimes it's multiple coyotes coming in. So let's say you do that and, you know, the dogs are working and you shoot one. Is that set over?
No.
They'll keep coming even after a shot?
Yeah. Now, they're going to run a little bit, but a lot of times when you've got multiple coyotes, and usually what I try to do is shoot the least aggressive coyote first. When I have one start backing off on me, I'll shoot it first. And most of the time, the one that is the least aggressive is the alpha male. He lets the young dogs do the young coyotes do the dirty work.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. He lets those younger coyotes do the dirty work. And you know, when you shoot them, sometimes they'll go. Well, just like that one coyote, you know, he disappeared there for a minute. He was over that deal the last time he came back. You just keep, and what I do is I mess with sounds like I played 3 different sounds on that coyote when he was up by that fence. Mm-hmm. And when I'd have one that perked him up, I'd play it. And then when he quit, I'd go back to one of the other ones. And that's pure experimental. There's no science or proven technique behind that. It's just what I like to do. But you know, those other ones come back, and one of them might packle up and, you know, get 30, 40 yards from you, and then you pop him, and then the other one might squirt off and come back. But it's not uncommon to shoot and those coyotes come back.
I think to me, that was the favorite part. My favorite part was that you know, we thought we lost that coyote, and you just kept calling, and the dogs were out there working, and then sure enough, he popped over that knoll, and I was like, I can't believe this thing came back. You know?
Well, the first time when we first seen him up there against the fence row, he seen us and left. But he seen them dogs, and he wanted to come back because they caught his interest.
Yeah. They like Tanner said, they definitely knew we were there.
And then you kept changing the call, and he'd get excited and start hopping up over the top of the grass.
Yeah, and that, you know, and with that grass, you know, we couldn't get lucky enough to call one in on a cut hayfield. Mm-hmm. But that grass, you know, I told those dogs, go get them. And they took off where they needed to go. They just didn't go far enough, but they couldn't see.
Yeah,
you know,
you just see the ears out of the grass.
Nobody could see anybody. And then finally, you know, then the dogs turn around and start trotting, and the damn coyote starts moving. It's like, oh gosh! And you can't do anything. If I were to have done anything, I just let them come back. I wait till they turn and get back, and then I'll try to hype them up again.
Yeah, and like. At that one time, they might have been 30 yards from each other, you know, and they didn't know each other was there. So the patience on the trigger is another thing. If you want to make one, I would say
everything.
You have to dang sure take a chance of not killing that coyote to get them started.
Now, when you've got guys like the government guys in the Dakotas and Wyoming and all that their job is dead coyotes, they're gonna sometimes shoot them sooner than a recreational guy like me would. Mm-hmm. But I tell people, take your rifle, set it up in the sticks, and set it 3 feet from you. Mm-hmm. Just because if you're going to make a dog, it's not about shooting coyotes. Yeah. It's about letting the dogs do what they do, and then getting the coyote killed.
I mean, that's the same in a lot of, you know, dog hunting. Like when we're training pups, lots of times you go out with the mindset of, we're probably not going to tie a hog tonight. Sometimes, I mean, lots of times we do, but I always try to tell myself, like, that's not the goal. Putting pigs on the ground tonight is not the number one goal. It's getting the dogs exposure and getting the training started.
Like when you get a bay, when you're pig hunting, when you got a puppy out there, or a young dog, you don't hustle. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but the dogs we run, they're not real rough. You know, they're going to stay back in bay. The more that puppy can work that bay, if the hog breaks and runs, you know, even if they lose him, if that puppy can pick that track back up, that's a
huge win.
You know, and that's the same thing.
You mentioned that you've hunted in quite a few different states. Have you noticed that the coyotes are different in any of the states that you've hunted?
Up in South Dakota and Montana, up in those areas where the country's just vast, just huge. First time I ever went up there, we'd been there 2 days and killed 1 or 2 coyotes. And every coyote, like if you read the book, it's going to tell you when the coyote hears a call, it's going to try to get downwind and all that. Most of the coyotes I kill around here, they come to the call. And I'm not saying that I don't have coyotes get behind me and bust me because they get downwind of me, but I focus on where I want to put the coyote and where he's at, not letting the wind blow to him. Up there, they followed the book. I mean, they did exactly like the textbook tells you. They would go downwind, and I would be sitting on the edge of you couldn't sit in a chair. We just sat on pads on the ground because there was no flat ground. And you'd see a coyote 600, 700, 800 yards just trotting across.
Do you think part of that's probably the vastness of that?
I think it's the vastness of it, and I don't really know what else to contribute to it, but they definitely they did the wind. And what we wound up doing the third day, typically I want the wind blowing in my face or across me, crosswind or straight at me. What we wound up doing was setting the call out and having one of us would go about 300 yards downwind of the call and had to still shoot coyotes at 200 and 300 yards. But we killed 5 doing that. But it was just totally different. But up there, another thing about up there, we go places here, you can pull up Onyx or Google Earth or whatever, and I can kind of look at stuff and say, this is probably where the coyotes are.
Yeah.
Up there, everything's the same, and there's so much of it, you almost have to get lucky.
Yeah, I mean, not that obviously we're not experts, but like when we would pull up to spots this morning, I mean, part of it is kind of your pointing us that direction, but you can kind of tell like that area is probably going to hold coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what messed us up this morning was that we
The wind is
would
killing us.
set up with the wind going one way, and by the time we got our chairs set down, it had spun back around.
Yeah.
And I think you said that when you're calling coyotes, there's what were the three important things?
Wind, and wind.
Yeah,
those
that's
are the
right.
first three.
That's right.
Have you ever? I mean, I know you got 2 dogs out there with you, but have you ever tried like scent control? I mean,
No.
you never have.
No. I mean, you think about it, you got cadaver dogs that can find a dead body 20 feet in the ground covered with coffee grounds, diesel, pig manure. You're just not going to fool their nose.
Yeah.
There's guys that want to promote those products and stuff, and there's, my challenge to them is set a little ribbon out there where it shows which way the wind's blowing, where you're sitting, and call me a coyote up using whatever you want to do. Get me a coyote that will come that you can put in your scent cone with any product you got. It's not going to happen. Now, I've had dumb luck. Like the one I told you, I'm calling, coyote comes in. This is during the winter, no dogs. Shoot him. 2 minutes later, another coyote comes in from a different direction, shoot him, call for a little bit more. Nothing else is going to come in, finish the stand up, wind blowing straight in my face, stand up, and 75 yards behind me, I got a coyote sitting on his butt just looking at me. So I'm not saying that but if you're banking on any type of scent control to save you from a coyote busting you, it's foolish.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time.
So you only use dogs May through September?
Yeah, and then during the fall and winter, I'll take them every now and then just to get them out of the house. And they chase coyotes off. I don't care. It's not hurting anything. So but they're effective. Like right now, maybe another week or two, you're going to see that we could go out, and I'd say 9 out of 10 coyotes we call are going to run. We might have one that might follow them back to a couple hundred yards, but they're not going to be aggressive.
Do you think that on that last set this morning, do you think that den was probably behind us up there by that one come out by the gate up against the fence?
Yeah.
You think the den was probably behind us somewhere?
It's hard to say because that place, that's only the second time I've been to that place ever. And I don't know what it looks like beyond there, but I don't even know if typically is the right word, but by the book, they're going to be on the edge of a hill that's facing east near water. So where we were when that rolled over, there was water in a lot of places. I don't know if it was due directly east, but I think if I was guessing up there behind that gate where the gate was, if you rolled off in there, it's somewhere within a couple hundred yards of there. And that first one, who knows? I mean, he might have been laying in the grass.
Yeah, I think
at that on the fence at the corner.
We no more had our chairs set up.
I know. Yeah.
And,
You just turned on the call. It wasn't 10 seconds.
Yeah.
on your call, go back to that. On your volume, I think you was playing with your volume some.
Yeah.
You get higher for a little while, then you go low. And what's your main reason? That just responses or?
I don't call real loud. And then there's times like on the one that came in that busted us or got our wind, I turned it up there because where he came from is where they usually come from. And I wanted to just get some more volume out there. But whenever, I'm in a place that's a little more tight, I don't want to just
Blow it out.
Yeah.
One thing that struck me was that, like, how old were those dogs that we hunted this morning?
3.
So, I mean, they've been around.
They're 3 or 4. They might be 4.
But you would start, and you got to mention, you're calling coyote sounds, not mealtime sounds.
Right.
For the most part. But
Right.
but what I was going to say was that what struck me was that you would start making those coyote calls, and those dogs that are pretty experienced, they would perk up at the call itself. And I was like,
There were
man,
certain calls I noticed that. Some of them they'd get real serious after when you turned on a certain call.
but I was like, calls have gotten pretty advanced when they're kind of fooling seasoned dogs.
Yeah. Both those dogs are 4. I just looked up. They just turned 4. Yeah. say we like the canine, one of those sounds I played is just canine puppies. It's just a litter of puppies, domestic puppies, just whining how they sound. That's kind of a prey sound and a vocalization sound. It kind of covers both.
Yeah.
But if I went out and say we sit down and we just turned on rabbit, had a coyote or two coyotes coming in, they're in hunt mode then. Not saying they won't work the dogs, but whenever they're coming to a coyote fight or a distress or something like that, they're in a different mode. They're coming to protect. They're looking to see what's going on. So now I have in the past used like coyote growls and fawn distress with pretty good success, but I don't depend on many prey sounds. Even in the fall and winter, I play way more vocalizations than I do prey.
The Houndsman XP podcast is fueled by Joy Dog Food. Joy Dog Food has a rich tradition of supporting the Houndsmen of America. Founded in 1945, Joy is proud of its history and the relationship it has built with the American Houndsman. And in 76 years, there's never been a recall. Made with 100% American-made high-quality ingredients, Joy Dog Food has one of the highest calorie-dense formulas on the market. For 76 years, this made-in-America product has kept hunting dogs in the field day after day, season after season. And when we say made in America, Joy has a long track record of fighting for American freedoms by being on the front lines against the animal rights movement and their extremist tactics. Joy will fuel your hounds and fight for your freedoms. Fueled by Joy.
Did you come from any other dog sports? Is this your first hunting with dogs?
That's it.
Really?
Yeah. I was watching TV, and there was a guy named Cal Taylor. He's the guy from Wyoming, the government guy from Wyoming that I told you about. And they had on one of the channels, they called it Coyote Hunting is Gone to the Dogs. And him and the guy he hunted with, they were doing this decoy dog deal. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know anything about dogs.
Really?
Didn't know anything about dogs.
You've never run like run and hound type open on coyotes?
When I was a kid, I was born in 1970, so 77, 78, 80-ish, my grandpa hunted birds, and he always had two dogs. He had a seasoned dog and a young dog, and I think he had pretty good dogs. Of course, I guess everybody thinks their grandpa's dogs are great, but the guys he hunted with, I think they had pretty solid dogs.
Yeah.
So I had hunted birds with my grandpa before, and he had the whistle. There weren't any training collars or anything like that. He just had a whistle that he carried, and but I hadn't done anything else with dogs at all.
Did you call hunt before that, or?
I just started.
Just started?
Just started. I had been hunting coyotes for months.
Yeah.
Before I saw it, and then I got interested in it.
So what year was that?
2010.
10. Yeah. Because like I said, I've seen some videos on it, and stuff like that. But there's really, in our area, there's not very many people that.
Not
do
really.
It. And,
not really.
There's a lot of people that call hunt, and it's getting big around.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that you was talking about is your pressure.
Yeah.
On your coyotes and stuff is the education on them.
Yeah. I used to 5 or 6 years ago. I had, there for several years, I hunted 150 plus days a year. When I got off work, I knew where I was going. There's times I drove to Okemah, over an hour away to make one stand. Mm-hmm. But I had what I called 80%ers. I knew that 80% of the time I was going to call coyotes there. And I'd do that. And then there'd be times that I was a little closer to the house. I was going to get here at this time. I was going to be there no longer than this many minutes. And I was in the truck driving to the next one, make that second stand. But they were productive, And now, okay, here's another thing. Back that far back, 8 out of 10 coyotes that I called in would work a dog. Now it's 2 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, and calling way fewer in. And then with, thermal being legal now, it's going to be so hard to call a coyote in the next year and a half, 2 years. It's already hard, but it's going to get really hard.
Yeah, and the thermal deal is just getting started in our area. And we do have the hills that make it harder. I mean, just the terrain, it's getting around. But yeah, it's going to, for the thermal guys, yeah, it's awesome. They enjoy doing it.
It is at the moment.
But the new will wear off, I hope anyways.
Yeah.
Me too. I hated it that they legalized it because, I was telling you guys that I know some guys from like the eastern states where they've been able to use thermal for several years before now. And there were guys that seriously didn't kill 3 or 4 coyotes a year. Mm-hmm. Then they got thermal and they started killing 10 or 12 a month. And that's a drastic increase. Mm-hmm. And after about 2 years, instead of killing 10 or 12 a month, they're killing 2, 3, or 4 a month. Mm-hmm. And it will continue to increasingly get worse. And that's the same thing around here because I guarantee you, if you can't call a coyote in the dark, you're not going to call one during the day.
Do you ever, it would have to be real close range. Do you ever use your dogs at night?
Yeah. And the thing about it, coyotes are not terribly aggressive, but they are aggressive at night year round.
Really?
Yeah, more so than they would be in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's with that, there's so much luck involved with that. With those dogs, how they'll go out. Mm-hmm. If they're going out and they cross paths or whatever, that works out great. But say we're calling and we have coyote come in across here and I've got a dog standing over there and the wind's not blowing right, they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
So it's just, you just shoot the coyote and get him killed. Mm-hmm. But if they're coming in or, especially with thermal, you can look up and you can see what's going on. So that there's a good chance there. Or if I got a dog over here and a coyote's coming across, I start toning those dogs, try to get them to cross paths or their wind hit each other. Mm-hmm. It's a little more difficult, but whenever it does happen, the coyotes are still aggressive in the winter.
Yeah. That's another thing on the wind. We use the wind for our dogs,
Sure.
But it's a factor for you when you're calling, and we try to drive their noses into the wind,
yes.
And so it all comes back around to a dog's nose, I guess is what I'm getting.
Well, and it's like with your pigs, if you knew, say you had an 80 and you could access it from any direction, and you go in and you stop your truck and you get out of your truck and the wind's at your back and it blows where those pigs are 600 yards away, they're going to smell you and they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And then, you've got the advantage of, number one, the pigs don't know that you're there when you've got the wind helping your dogs. But with the coyotes, if they hit your scent cone, that scent goes out like that. And if they hit it, if they're 400 yards or closer, man, they're going to turn and go the other way.
Yeah, that one today where I think it was the set before we got on that coyote. Cody got it on video. He was coming in fast as he could, and as soon as he hit that scent cone, he spun on a dime and was gone. So.
And there was no getting him back.
No, he was at 100 yards and then 300 in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, he wasn't locked in on the dog, so there wasn't any getting him back. And I hear a lot of guys that hunt deer talk about, coyotes will come by, they're just doing what they do. So they come by and they shoot him with the bow, and then they talk about, this coyote came in on my trail where I walked in, and as soon as he hit it, he turned and was gone. Mm-hmm. So, their nose keeps them alive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a smart animal.
Very.
And that was something else. I don't know if we touched on it or not, but I think it was at that. I think it was at that set where the coyote caught us. But I think it was after that. The dogs got out about 300-400. They will go out and hunt. And you were saying it's not as common, but instead of the coyote coming to the call, the dogs will go out
and find
their own coyote and kind of bring it back.
And that's the thing about these dogs. These are the 2 best dogs I've ever had, and I've had some really nice dogs. But just, they'll get bored. And, there's times that they're 300 yards out here doing what they're doing, and I got coyotes over here and I can't get the dogs called back quick enough to get any interaction with the two, and you just wind up shooting the coyote. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I like it. I like it when they go down in there, because a lot of times, they'll run across a coyote, and you'll hear the fight will break out, and they'll come back with coyotes.
Yeah, this morning was something.
That's another thing with us is, I can't tell you how many times is we'll have two dogs out there, 800 yards, 900. Like, man, they're getting after it, and then you got one that, oh yeah, he's milling around 150, 200. You're gonna be mad at him, like, oh, da-da-da-da-da. And then he'll end up being the one that finds the pig on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
It's just how it works.
Yeah. It's I like it when, like the area where we were at, I liked how they were just out there a little bit looking, and then they cruised out one time and came back and turned and looked. None of them are going to be perfect. I don't know of a single person that has a dog that they won't tell you has a couple of flaws. They've all got flaws, but I really, the flaws that mine have, I'll take them. I can handle it. I can handle it.
The control you had on them. And getting an understanding of it today, it's paramount that you have that control.
And the majority of that comes from when I get home from work, I open that gate and I let those dogs out. And, I can tell them stay close. And I don't know that they comprehend it or not, but when I tell them stay close, they don't go very far past those trees. And I can call them back. Now, across the street here, or across the property line here, there's some old sheds, and there's something that burrows down in there. And a lot of times I got to go recover dogs over there because they're in a hole or trying to get in a hole. But for the most part, I've got them out here, and I'll whistle them back. Come on, and get them to come back, pet them, love on them, then let them mill around. And, they're handled a bunch.
Yeah, think about it. So the big dog, it doesn't have any Patterdale in it, right?
She's got Jag in her.
But that's pretty much the same thing. Not the same thing, but
she's got some terrier in her.
It points to the same point. So you got a Jag cross and a Patterdale that at one point this morning were chasing a coyote, and you just toned them, and they stopped and come back to us.
They circle around and come back
to get them to chase us. And a lot of people would think, you can't make a terrier do that. Like when they lock in on game, they are.
Yeah, it's hard for any hunting dog, really.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing with Patterdales. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure hog guys probably do it too, but they argue with each other and they fight. Whose dog's best? Who's this? Who's that? When you get a dog in the ground with a coon, if you've got a dog that is aggressive and wants to hook up with one, they're going to get banged up. They're probably going to have to go to the vet, or they're going to be down for 2 or 3 weeks. You get a dog that'll get down in there and just bay and bark at one and not mix it up with them, you hunt that dog the next day. And those guys' egos get those dogs hurt. Mm-hmm. And some dogs are just what they are. They're hard dogs and they're going to do what they do. But with, like I was telling you, I handle them. I handle them all the time. Now, there's times that they're fresh. Maybe say you go somewhere and first stand, they get on something and it takes off running. I might have to switch over to momentary and tap them to get their attention. Yeah. But no, they and another thing, like you might have seen whenever Mila, she kind of wants to do terrier stuff all the time. I'd beep that collar. I just beep it and she'll come stand and she'll start looking. Mm-hmm. She knows, it's like, hey, I get her attention and she comes back and gets back in the game.
Back to reality.
Yeah.
You know what app I use on my phone more than any other app besides the podcast app to listen to this here podcast? I use OnX. OnX Maps is the most comprehensive mapping system for hunters on the market today. I use it all the time. When I was in New Mexico, I was looking at 40,000 acres of ranch that I needed to learn. I flip open OnX and just start studying the map. When I'm riding trails, I put the tracking app on It helps me get around in strange country. I could mark water sources, food sources, bear sign, just all kinds of options within onX. You need to check out onX Maps by going to houndsmanxp.com. Click on the link on our sponsor page. You'll go right to onX Maps, and when you check out, enter the code HXP20 and you will get 20% off of your order. Know where you stand with onX.
And on our first set this morning, we was in a hayfield. Hay was still in it, the bales. We was just propped up against some hay bales, and I was kind of low, and I seen some movement off to our right, and I kind of told these guys, because I couldn't tell if it was a coyote or a Bigfoot, but ended up being deer. Well, the dogs, they seen movement, you know, and I swear they take off that way, and I'm like, oh, here we go. We're hunting Ed's dogs again. But no, I swear, just by the way they ran and kind of the path they took, they was almost like they was seeing what was flushing those deer out of there.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but it was something to see. I mean, it's just
That was pretty nice. That was pretty nice because that was our first set. Once again, you just hit the call, and then they were. How far do you think they were?
a couple hundred from us.
A couple hundred. Yeah. So we couldn't make them out at first. We all kind of momentarily thought they were coyote, and I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I was
We
ready.
just
I said, man, we're getting spoiled today.
Yeah, then when he said there's two, I'm like, oh yeah.
I zoomed in that camera and I said, uh-oh, they're deer.
But no, it didn't need to be too easy on us. We wanted it to.
Like I was saying, I mean, sometimes it's better when it's not quite so easy.
Yeah, you need a little bit of a reward at the end.
It was a reward. I mean, I can't explain. Like I said, I've watched videos of it, but it's not, watching
Videos don't do it justice.
It's not the same thing.
No, you got to be in person to see that.
And it's kind of, I don't know what I would say, but when they're going back and forth, you know, it's almost like a chess match for those dogs. They run them out there just long enough to kind of get their bluff in on them, you know, and then they ease their way back, and that coyote kind of thinks he's winning, you know, and he's kind of pushing them off, and then I don't know. It's just. It has to be the dog to do it, I think. You know, not to just bull rush one to act like he's just going to jump all over him. You know, I mean, they're playing that coyote.
Oh yeah, they was just playing. They was having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you talk about seeing it on film and stuff. You have a coyote follow a dog in, and he's standing from here to that building, and just you're sitting right there. He's just going nuts. It is as exciting to me the 50th time as it was the first.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they focus on those coyotes so much. I mean, me and Cody showed up wearing camo, and Ed gets out, and he's in like a bedazzled shirt, pearl snaps, and has his bald head out. I was like, you know, I felt bad when we come here, but you still got the coyote.
Well, we went call hunted a bunch. You better be hid if you ain't got dogs.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Them coyotes, like, they knew we were there.
Yeah.
That's what kind of blows my mind. Like, they knew we were there.
Especially that one. I mean, he saw us right off the back, but he caught them dogs' attention, and he was focused on them dogs the whole time. He left and then come back to see if they were still there.
Yeah.
Do you think that gets to be they're just a top priority at the time? I mean, they focus so much on those dogs.
Yeah, it's a protection deal. They are protecting something. There's pups around, and like right now, you know, those pups they're not babies. You know, they're bigger, but you know, they are just being protective.
Yeah.
Well, like we were talking about this morning, like coyotes are very. I said pack, and I was a little bit wrong, but you corrected me and said family. So they're so focused on keeping their population at its peak.
Safe. They want them safe.
Yeah.
And like, you know, we were talking about if you've got an area, say there's some construction kicks off or whatever, and part of their territory is not like it used to be, and it won't, if their area is going to maintain 7 coyotes, there's going to be 7 there. If it won't, they'll push something out. They'll force one out. And if you're somewhere that will hold 9, there's going to be 9. And when you kill one, kill two, whatever, you've got the transient coyotes, especially right now this time of year. They're out. They've been kicked out of the house. They're trying to find a group to get with and be accepted, and they'll hear, they'll cruise around and they'll hear that group howl or whatever, and they might pass back through there 3 days later, and the group howl sounds off, and that one or two is not there. They know, they can tell. They're going to go in and look. They're going to investigate. They might be accepted. They might not.
You wasn't carrying all kinds of stuff. I mean,
no.
You have your call, your gun,
my chair,
decent chair,
and my tripod,
and a tripod, and your dogs. I mean, they know enough what's going on. They're not running off and doing whatever. I'm kind of envy of it. Is we could do this on a work night and still get some sleep.
It's something to think about.
Not, we're at the point where we get too addicted and want to hunt all night. And
No, I basic. I got my chair, my call, my remote, my dog remote.
Yeah.
That's on that harness, and either a tripod or shooting sticks, and in my pack, in my rifle. So I just put it all in the pack, go it over my shoulders, and
you're set basically.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a whole lot of walking. Pretty much hide the truck and get a little ways away from the truck, but it wasn't like we were hunting.
I've got places where there is a lot of walking.
Yeah.
But today I tried to set it up where we didn't have to
get in and out quick, or
try to have to walk 3/8 half a mile one way and then turn around and go the next one, because
it seems like when you make a set, pretty quick whether it's going to be productive or not. Is that right?
And there's sometimes where you might be at the 18-minute mark and boom, there's a coyote. But with this, most of the time doing it what we're doing, and with it not being about food and all that, it's more of there's an urgency, and they show up and they so
get this taken care
it
of.
usually happens quicker.
How far do you think a coyote that heard those calls would travel to get to it?
I'd say if you're 300 yards or closer to a den, you're going to have a higher success rate. If I have, perfect example, whenever we were in Montana, have coyotes come into 400 yards and just sit and watch. We weren't close enough to be a bother to them or a concern, but they would come in and they'd sit and they'd watch. And
I wonder in that big country you're talking about, I wonder if a coyote's range is bigger than it is here.
I think it is. I think it almost have to be, but I can't prove it. But I know that up there I've had coyotes circle and get downwind half a mile away, and I can't tell you, what's their range. Will this 640 acres hold 2 groups, or will it hold 3, or will it hold 1? So I don't really know. I was telling you the one in Wyoming, that one male coyote that those government guys killed, he was going 7 miles. There were not sheep within 7 miles of where he was, and he was coming in every other night, killing. He'd fill his gut up, and then he would carry back like a small lamb or whatever, and they intercepted him and got him killed, and that ended the sheep killing. So he traveled a long ways.
Yeah, at least 7 miles.
A long ways, yeah.
And I will say before we go, he did make a good shot.
It's a pretty good shot.
The pressure was on with a camera on him that Cody didn't get the shot.
The sky.
We don't know. We're not 100% sure whether it was.
We're going to have to work on the cameraman.
We don't know if that was filmed or not at this point.
Free cameraman, I mean, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
But if anybody out there is a good cameraman and is looking for a job that pays nothing,
yeah, we have this one for you.
It's an apprentice, ain't it?
But yeah, I would say, just in closing, I would say if anybody out there gets a chance, especially if you're into dog hunting, if you get a chance to go with somebody, do it.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that opportunity, get on one of the internet sites and look up some videos. It's not the same thing, but it's still pretty darn impressive. Mm-hmm. These dogs are working. It's a totally different type of work. I'm trying to figure out what
it's almost disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Without it's discipline
sure.
without discipline. Because everything those dogs do, other than toning them, they are just doing what they do. I can't make a dog do something a certain way. Every dog kind of develops its own style, but with the exception of hitting that tone button, it's just they're just doing what they know to do, and they like it.
It's almost like, I mean, it's like, obviously we're hunting, but I'm not trying to discredit the dogs, but it's almost more like they're like a working dog as opposed to a hunting dog. Even though
True, they're not going to find anything. They're not, it's a combination. I'd probably say 80% working, 20% hunting, because I feel like when they go out, they're working, but they're also hunting. Mm-hmm. They're trying to find their own, and those two are really good at finding their own.
Yeah, I mean, they're using their nose, but a lot of it, they're using their brain, how to work that coyote and bring him back to you.
Like when we first got started, me and Tanner were watching dogs, and I think we were leaving that first set, and Tanner goes, "The big dog is doing all the thinking." And he's like, "I got a feeling that little dog is probably a shit starter."
I tell you what, she will. She doesn't travel as fast as the big dog, and I got some of the videos I wanted to send you. They're too long. It won't let me send them. But we were in Montana, and this coyote came in, and it was probably, I think when Daniel shot him, he was 478 yards out. But they were going and coming back, and the coyote just wouldn't come any closer. Unfortunately, I was with a couple of guys that are precision long-range shooters, so 400 yards ain't nothing. Ain't nothing to them. And they just kept going and coming. And then when they came back, they were probably 250 yards from the coyote, because I kept toning them back, hoping that coyote would break and come on in, and it never did. So they shot, and Hooker takes off. She runs up there, and she's there, and Mila's going behind her. She's about 7 or 8 seconds behind her, and Daniel goes, "Oh, short stuff. She's gonna get there. It might take her a while, but she runs in there and hits that coyote, just wham. She's not scared of nothing."
Yeah, you can just. When we pulled in the driveway this morning, you could just tell by her attitude, she steps where she wants to step.
Yeah. And we should mention that. We should probably, let's get some video before we leave, but Scott has one of the best kennel setups I've seen. I mean,
Thank you.
It's top notch. Mm-hmm. It's got my brain.
Ed'd be wanting to move in.
Yeah.
It's nice from Ed's house, ain't it?
I could sleep in that building with the dogs.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you what I'd change if I was going to do it again.
What would you change?
I would make, where we live, it's not in town, but there's neighbors, and I probably wouldn't want to do it here. But if I was a little more remote like we used to be, where you come off there where the drain is to flush everything down, I would extend out past that further, whatever I could afford panel-wise, or maybe even fencing, to keep those dogs, they're on concrete all the time. And I put that pad heel and that musser stuff, I treat them with that twice a week or whatever, but that hot concrete will kind of wear on their paws. And hell, it might toughen them up. But
it does toughen them. But
it toughens them up, but they still need a little moisture added to them.
An animal needs dirt.
Yeah, so I would extend those runs out another 10, 15 feet, whatever, where they could get on dirt when they want to.
Yeah, we should explain it. He has a, how big is that outbuilding?
12 by 20.
He's got a 12 by 20 building, and then off of one side he has runs of kennels that go off the side of the building, and then the building is air conditioned. Does it have heat in it?
Yeah, I got a mini split in it, but the problem with the mini split, the lowest the temperature goes 62. So I just use a little stand-up heater, and I keep it about 45 in there in the winter.
So the dog's inside. The dog can access the building through a door that's on hinged, so they can get out of the weather if they want. And they've got a little.
It's crates.
So just a crate inside that they can sleep in or hang out when it's hot or cold.
Yeah.
And then he's got just outside of his kennel spaces, he has concrete poured past the panels, and then he has a sloping trough in the concrete that goes to a septic tank just for the dogs. There's no dog smell. Like I imagined inside the building that there would be like dog smell, but all you could smell was cedar.
Yeah, and I used that enzyme deal.
For the septic tank?
No,
not
for
everybody hunts skunks.
for the odor. Oh, hey, listen, those are two champion skunk dogs. We're gonna have to have a skunk hunt.
We did last year
because I think I can hang.
Yeah, we did have a competition skunk hunt, and what happened, Tanner? We lost.
Yeah. Couldn't believe it.
But that's because we left Ed's dogs at home, wasn't it?
You say that. When was the last time my dogs caught a skunk?
When was the last time your dogs caught anything? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's about time to quit.
We're done here. We're gonna fight. So. Well, I just want to thank you for taking us. Main thing.
You bet.
Before we go, I've already got my dates down for next year and places where we need to go. So.
Yeah, I think next year we're going to come hook up with you a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
We're recording this. It's September 8th, 9th?
9th.
It's the 9th. And like Scott was saying earlier, like we're right kind of on the tail end of it, and the coyotes just weren't quite aggressive enough. So if we were going to try to do this a few weeks earlier, but it was just so hot. So next year we'll get at it a little bit sooner.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. I really respect you as, dog men and the things you do with your dogs. And I'm kind of honored that you thought enough of me to let me be on here and come hunt with me.
Well, it was super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've called in a lot of coyotes, but hunting with dogs is my new way to do it now.
There'll be an episode 2.
There will be.
Good deal.
So we'll see y'all next time.
Yep. Thank you guys for listening, and check out Decoy Dogs.
Yep. Check out Scott Hampton.
Mm-hmm.